Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, a place you'll find stories from fanfictions written and read to you by your host, me, Tiger. All the stories on this channel are in the first person perspective, and I try to twist and turn on the whole fanfiction. So, today we're diving back into a series of mine called The Entities of Evil. This is their second entry, and please, of course, check out the first one, which is called The Red Ranger Reaper. That was a lot of fun, and the Three Ranger Bros are voice acting it. This one, however, is all by my lonesome, and this is another idea that I came up with. The Entities of Evil, it takes the idea that there are evil people in all the multiverse, and it takes specific characters, and of course it's in the first person perspective, and I kind of tell tales with made up characters that kind of play on some fiction, maybe some not, and of course they're all bad guys, so that's a lot of fun. So that being said, let's dive in with today's story. Today's story revolves around Jameson Trax, the next person to wield the Omnitrix after Ben. In this universe, Alien Force and onward never happened. Ben Tennyson put down the Omnitrix when he was 11, and that was it. So, that being said, let's dive in with today's story. Entities of Evil, Jameson 5, the Wielder of the Omnitrix. My name is Jameson Trax. I was meant to be a superhero. The Omnitrix was given to me. I was the next protege. Ben Tennyson took it off when he was 11, and he never put it back on. I, however, was given the Omnitrix after the DNA configuration was changed to fit me. When it connected to my wrist, I took it with grace. I started off saving people, being the hero using my new alien transformations. I received the Omnitrix through the plumbers. My parents were well-educated people in the light of day, but secretly the best plumbers around, of their generation at least, making me a notable candidate. I was fairly new to the whole alien scene, so to make it fair, Azimuth, the creator of Omnitrix, only gave me 5 aliens access, which I deemed fair. I was only 14, still in high school, pretending my father was a big businessman, always toing and froing from London, and when actually he was going to space and fighting alien dogs with no eyes. I was given 5 aliens for the time being. Azimuth told me that once I got a feel for it, then he would unlock the other transformations for me. I went to school like any normal person. I started my day off with math. I hated maths. But I did get to sit next to Lindsay Sparks, the cutest girl in school. I had a blast sitting next to her. She was insanely smart and often helped me out. I might play it on a bit, but it was just to get her attention. "Hey Jameson, how was your weekend?" Lindsay asked with a perfect smile. "Alright, thanks," I said awkwardly. We sat there and listened to the teacher drone on and on about numbers and equations, algebra or something. Then I headed for my next lesson. Then I ran into Darren, Lindsay's boyfriend. "Oh, yo, freak, stay away from Lindsay, yeah?" Darren said to me. "She's my maths partner and not my fault we got paired up," I said back. Darren then shoved me into the lockers and pushed himself into my face. "I said stay away. I'll run you onto the tennis court," Darren growled. I'd almost forgot about tennis. Annoyingly, me and Darren was pitted against each other. Darren backed off and started to walk away. I looked down at my Omnitrix and a small grin appeared on my face. I knew how I could get my revenge. I waited till after lunch, and I hung around in the changing rooms for everyone to leave, and I headed to the tennis courts. I hid myself in the corner, triple-checked the room was empty, then I activated the Omnitrix. I turned the dial, and the necrophidrang transformation hologram stared at me. "Yeah, that'll do." I then slammed my hand down on the watch and a flash of green light enveloped me and I transformed into Glacier Ghost. It's what I called my necrophidrang. Ben called his Big Chill, but I thought that was kind of stupid. As Glacier Ghost, I phased out of the building and I made myself invisible. I then floated down to the tennis court where I saw Darren and his friends preparing for me to enter. I floated down and Darren was stood there holding his racket over his head. "Oh, where is this dumbass?" Darren muttered. I took a deep breath and exhaled a cold blast from my mouth and aimed it at his foot. There formed a solid block of ice around him, freezing his foot to the floor. Darren screamed out in fear and maybe some pain, as the ice was touching his bare skin now. Then I floated away to the corridor exit, and I transformed back. I then jogged it up to the trio, acting like nothing happened. "Oh my god, what hell happened here?" I gasped out in my act of pretend. I don't know. It just happened, one of the other boys yelled. Get me out of this, Darren screamed at his attempt to pulling his leg free. I will get the teacher, I said in panic. Then I ran off, and I entered the school building. I slowed down to a walk, and I walked off with a grin on my face. Then I clocked Lindsay in the corridor. Hey, Lindsay, I was wondering if you wanted to go out tonight, I asked her. Her friends giggled like little schoolgirls. Lindsay turned around and hushed them. She looked at me and smiled. I think me and Darren have plans, Lindsay stated. Oh, funny, because he just told me him and the lads had plans, and you weren't even mentioned, I replied. Oh. Okay, then yeah, sure, we can go to dinner, I suppose, Lindsay said sadly. Okay, I'll pick you up, let's say 7, I questioned. Sure thing, Jameson. Lindsay nodded, then she walked off with her friends. I then left school, having done with my classes. Now that tennis brought to a halt due to Darren's accident, I decided it was time to do some hero business. I jogged off to school grounds, and I hid in an alleyway. I activated the Omnitrix, turned up the dial, and scrolled through my 5 choices. I decided to go with the aerophibian transformation. I called it Quick Stinger. I believe Ben called his Jet Ray. It was a humanoid red manta ray, so I guess that name made sense. Time to see if I can help the city, I muttered. Then I took flight with incredible speed. I bolted across the sky. Within a few moments, I'd found several masked thugs robbing a bank. I flew down and I landed, startling the armed robbers. Ah! Monster! One called. I prefer the term alien myself, but okay, I muttered. The robbers aimed their blasters at me and tried to open fire. I flew up and started bolting left and right, dodging the attacks. I shot laser blasts from my tail and I hit 2 of the 4 robbers. Then I bolted down and quickly swung my tail, smacking one of the robbers across the head. The 4th one ran out of the bank and I bolted forward towards them. I picked him up and flew him up into the sky, dropping him from a few stories up, and he fell on top of a car. I then landed into the bank, picked up 2 of the bags and bolted off and disappeared. At 7 p.m, back in my normal form, I rocked up to Lindsay's house, in a nice new suit that I rented, and of course a limo. A little treat I brought myself as the hero of the city. I thought I deserved it. Lindsay walked up to me, all in shock, her mouth dropped open. Oh my god. Wow, who knew you had surprises? Lindsay blurted in shock as I opened the passenger door for her. Then we drove off and I took her to her favourite pizza place. We got to our table and we ordered our food. So tell me, Trax, when did you have this type of money? Lindsay asked. I work a lot after school, I lied. Well, money is paying off good, huh? She replied. I smiled at her and we ate some expensive pizza. Then we went for a little stroll. So, you're like me then, she stated as we strolled. Meaning? I questioned. You're 14, trying to work your ass off to make money, throwing the last bit of child innocence away to, I don't know, do more, Lindsay told me. Oh, yeah, I think so, I nodded. I never actually asked what you did, Lindsay asked. She stopped walking and looked at me. I stopped and swallowed hard, not knowing what to say. Suddenly, an explosion erupted above us. It was a 60-story skyscraper across the road, there where we stood, several floors down from the top. The entire floor exploded, glass and debris fell down. Everyone around us started running in opposite directions and screaming. I took a couple steps onto the road, staring at the burning building. Jameson, we've got to go, Lindsay cried out, trying to pull away. I yanked my hand free from her grip. Then I turned to Lindsay and a lump appeared in my throat. You wanted to know what I did? Well, you're about to find out. Just don't hate me, okay? I muttered to her. I then pulled back my sleeve and revealed the Omnitrix. I activated, the hologram appeared, and I turned the dial. I pushed down on the dial, a flash of green surrounded me as I transformed into Quick Sting. I saw Lindsay's shocked face before me as I bolted up into the air and flew up to the building as fast as I could. I entered the flaming, burning floor of the building. People coughing and calling for help rung in the air. I slammed my claw on the Omnitrix and I transformed back to my normal self. I then scanned the room and I noted a few trapped people. Again, I activated the Omnitrix. The hologram appeared and I turned the dial quickly as the holograms changed, and then I slammed my watch once I found the alien of choice. I transformed into my Tetraman form. Ben called his forearms, but I called mine Quadro Fist. I picked up the massive fallen piece of the ceiling off of several people and I threw it to one side. Everyone, get to the window, I ordered. I ran down the corridor and I punched down a door as I called out for people. I kept doing this until I heard someone yell for help. I scanned the whole building, but Nothing, no one was there, and no one seemed to be calling back. I then slammed my chest and transformed back to normal. I jogged back to the big broken window where the people I had already saved were waiting. Then I transformed back into Glacier Ghost. I took flight and breathed a big blast of cold, forming a slide from our level of floor all the way down to the ground. Everyone started sliding down it. I then turned incorporeal and flew through the building, gliding through the flames, freezing them solid as I did. Once all the flames turned into solid ice, I floated down to the ground and transformed back to normal. I looked around and found Lizzie stood there exactly where I left her. She was stood there in shock. "You're a superhero?" she blurted. I tried to be. Yeah, I muttered with a shrug. "The ghost thingy, and the fast one. You've been on the news before, saving the city. You saved us more than once." Lindsay noted in shock. "I have?" I nodded. "Wait a second. They're aliens. How did you get paid? You hired a limo. Your suit must have cost at least $100. Lindsay sneered. I staggered. "Oh my god, the bank robbed me on 5th this morning." "Did you steal money?" Lindsay barked at me. "I might have borrowed some cash. I did save some, losing a lot of money," I staggered. "You're supposed to be a hero, aren't you? Oh my god, Darren's leg." "You froze it with the ghost one, didn't you?" Lindsay gasped at me. Then she turned around and stormed off. I stood there in the middle of the road, feeling like a fool. A few days had passed since my failed attempt at winning over Lindsay. I walked into the school and slumped down on my chair. Then Lindsay came bolting up to me and slapped me over the shoulder. "Ow!" I barked. "Can I talk to you, please, in private?" Lindsay growled. I stood up and followed her into the corridor. Then she led me outside and scanned the area. Then she glared at me. A fierce, fiery growl glared directly into my soul. Her growl could emanate off of her. "You're a jackass! Darren's in surgery! He might lose his leg! The frostbite was damaging!" Lindsay barked at me. "Okay, I'm sorry, it was only a joke," I muttered. "I've had enough of this all in one day. You're shaking me to my core." "I'm going to have to go to the police," Lindsay said. She turned around and started walking off. She started walking away. My blood started to boil, and I watched her walk away. I activated the Omnitrix. No woman was ever going to control my life and put me in prison for me trying to have some fun because I'm a hero and I deserved to have a bit of a break. I turned the dial and I slammed my hand on the watch and I transformed into Conductor. My Conductoid transformation. Ben called his feedback. I aimed my fingertips and blasted Lindsay with a blast of electricity. She flew forward and crashed into the concrete. Her body started to smoke from the heat. Her skin now blackened and burned and sizzling. She laid there not moving. I inched towards her when suddenly there was a flash of light to the corner of me. And another and another. I turned around and there, hanging from the window, was multiple students taking pictures. "It's one of those alien things! They attacked Lindsay! Why is it here? Is she dead? Someone called the police! An ambulance! Call somebody!" they all called out. I glared at them as they took their pictures. I had to act quickly. I aimed both my hands and blasted a big beam of electricity which hit the building, and I dragged it across the building, destroying the whole hallway, striking the entire corridor. I then transformed back to normal. I then saw the building destroyed. Fire, people, dead, or screaming. I just ruined my life. I looked down at Lindsay. "This is your fault," I growled. Then I walked away, leaving my failing life behind me. I entered the city. I walked through the streets. I thought about food, but I couldn't stomach it. I then clocked the TV monitor that hung in the shop window, which played the news. Over and over again, they showed a video of my school, and it was on fire. Then it showed my Conductor transformation, transform back into myself. Then a picture of me showed up on screen. I stood there in shock and confused. It was not my fault. I turned around and people started noticing me. They all started taking pictures again. I started to panic as I did not like their cameras in my face. I decided they should get what they deserved. I now understood why Ben gave up the Omnitrix. Being a hero was difficult. I did not need all the aliens unlocked in the Omnitrix. I could use the 5 transformations I had, and I was ready to show the human race why I was the perfect hero and why they didn't have to treat me like this. But because they weren't going to accept me, I would have to handle them seeing me as the perfect villain. Then fine. I activated the Omnitrix and slammed my hand down on the watch and transformed into Emerald Shard, my Petrosapien transformation. Ben called his Diamond Head. Then I started shooting crystal shards in random directions, hitting several people. Everyone screamed and ran away from me. I stood there tall and powerful. The police turned up and I raised my hands, and massive crystal shards ripped through the ground, ripping into police cars. They fired their guns at me, but my crystal body saved me. I then jumped up and shot several shards, which broke through the policemen's shields. I then slammed on the Omnitrix that was on my chest and transformed back into Quadro Fists. I then ran at 2 police officers, picked them both up and slammed them together. Then I threw them at other police officers. Suddenly 2 vans came up and halted. Several men climbed out carrying different types of weapons, and one of them pulled out a plumber's badge. Jameson Trax, you're under arrest by the hands of the plumbers of misuse of the Omnitrix. Transform back to your human self and surrender the Omnitrix for extraction now, said the plumber. Go to hell! I barked. I then slammed my hands and transformed into Glacier Ghost as I hit the Omnitrix on my chest. I phased into one of the plumbers, freezing him solid, and then I breathed a chilling blast and froze the next plumber and his blaster. I became solid and punched the plumber in the face. Then I slammed on my chest, hitting the Omnitrix again, and I transformed into Quick Stinger. I then took flight and aimed my tail, and I zapped several plumbers. I then bolted down and crashed into another one. One of the plumbers pulled a big cannon and pulled the trigger. Sonic waves hit me and I was paralyzed on the spot. Pain rippled through me and I was forced to transform back to my human self. Then several of the plumbers started blasting me with Stun Blast. I got hit several times and my body went numb. I dropped to the floor. Stunned, I was unable to move. Several days then passed, and I was stripped of the Omnitrix and put in prison on account of mass murder. Lindsay had died. Darren lost his leg. All of the kids in the corridor in my school also died, bar 1 or 2, but they had massive degree burns. I also killed a couple police officers and plumbers. I spent 6 weeks in prison. I still had not gotten used to the weightlessness of not having the Omnitrix on my wrist. I entered my cell after breakfast and sat on my bed, when suddenly a portal opened. I jumped to my feet and 2 men walked out of the portal. One carried a big scythe. Hello, Jameson. You can call me X. This is my friend Nicholas, also known as the Red Ranger Reaper, one man said. How do you know my name? I asked, confused. You're looking for supervillains like yourself, Nicholas told me. I'm a hero, I barked. Please, Jameson, we know you tasted villainy and enjoyed it. X grinned. I might have. Yeah, but I'm useless without the Omnitrix, I barked. Ah yes, the Omnitrix. Now about that, we could tamper with it, X stated. Now, I like the 5 I've got. I know them very well. But I don't have it, I interrupted. I like this guy. He's simple, Nicholas chuckled. Fine. Here, X grinned. He then held out his hands and his eyes glowed white. Then in his palm, a flash of green and the Omnitrix appeared. I held out my hand and it latched onto my wrist, and I grinned at them as the Omnitrix activated and started glowing. Why are you helping me? I asked them. I'm building a team of supervillains. People are willing to cross the moral line when necessary. I saw what you did. You don't care about anything, do you? X grinned at me. He was right. I thought about everything I did. I couldn't care one bit. I was glad I got my revenge, and I beat myself up for the fact I managed to get ragged by a bunch of plumbers. Alright. Count me in, I sneered. I knew for a fact nothing was left for me in this universe, and I couldn't face Mum and Dad. Then X and Nicholas walked back through their portal. I looked around my cell, took one deep breath, then looked down at the Omnitrix and smiled. I walked through the portal, ready to use my 5 transformations when necessary. And there you have it, guys. Another Entry to the Entities of Evil. This ongoing series is just a lot of fun. I can take one concept and just muddle it all together and make someone evil out of it. That being said though, make sure you check out the Three Ranger Bro Studios, which includes all of these things. I'm just going to reel them off because that's just easier. Nerds Through Comics, Storytime with Cosplay Dude 637, Power Rangers Universe 19, Sailor Moon E, One Piece audio drama. They are found all on Spotify. You can also check out the YouTube channel Nostalgia Time. They are hosted by my good friends Mark the Red Cornish Ranger, Nostalgia Time, and the rest are owned by Cosplay Dude 637. Then, of course, you can check out the Other Hero podcast and If You Give a Dad a podcast. They are our associations and they're good friends of ours. And, of course, make sure to check out the YouTube channel An Author's Crown, a good friend of mine and a good helper of these channels. That being said, make sure you check out the other Tiger Tales channels. We have Tiger Tales, of course, the original one. We have Tiger Tales Game Over, where you'll find more storylines, but they're all about video games. And Tiger Tales The Mysterious Origins, which explains a whole bunch of stuff. And eventually, you'll see X in that story as well. That being said, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and I shall see you guys really soon.